The current hit my knees the moment I tried to stand, and I dropped back down onto cold metal before I even understood what had happened. That was the first thing I learned about this cage. The second thing I learned was that the creatures watching me found this very funny. My name is Lily Grant. 2 hours ago, I was checking a broken sensor panel on the outer hull of my research station. Now, I was locked inside a glowing cell, and 4 tall beings with gray skin and long fingers stood outside it, talking about me as if I could not hear them. One of them stepped closer. He was taller than the rest, with a ridge running along the top of his head like a fin. A small device at his throat turned his clicking words into English. "You understand me," he said. "I understand you fine," I answered. The sound that came from the group was somewhere between a laugh and a hiss. The tall one did not enjoy that answer. His head ridge changed color, shifting from gray to a light orange. "You are the 4th of your kind we have taken this season," he said. "Do you know what the others did when we explained what comes next? They cried, they begged. One of them even offered to tell us where your homeworld is, just to be let go." I stayed quiet. Not because I was scared, but because I was thinking. I was counting the seconds between each sweep of the guard's eye across the room. I was studying the small metal clamp locked around my wrist, feeling for the seam with my thumb. "Your kind is strange," the tall one continued, turning to face the others now more than me. "Sharp teeth. Eyes that face forward, built for chasing. Every book we have read about your species calls you natural hunters. And yet look at you. Trapped in a small box, unable to even stand. It seems your hunting instinct is mostly a story you tell yourselves." The others clicked in agreement. It sounded like rocks tapping together. I lifted my head and looked straight into his eyes. I did not look away. "You keep saying hunter like that is the whole story," I said. "Like that is the top of the list." "Is it not?" he asked, tilting his head. "There is a word we do not use much anymore, because for a long time we did not need to," I said. "Apex. Do you know what makes something the top of its world? It is not the sharpest teeth. It is not even the fastest legs. It is when nothing else on that world wants to try its luck again." He laughed, but it came out weaker this time. "And what do you mean by that?" he asked. "Our planet tried to end us more times than you could count," I said. "Freezing ages, fire mountains, creatures far bigger than us with far bigger teeth. We did not start at the top of our world. We built our way there, piece by piece, using fire, using tools, using the simple refusal to lose. And once we got there, we kept climbing, because stopping was never really an option for us." "A charming story," he said, though his voice had lost some of its edge. "But a story is all it is, inside a cage, under my current." "You said we are the 4th crew you captured this season," I said. "Did the other 3 talk back to you? Or did they only wait to be told what happens next?" Something shifted in his face. It was small, but I saw it. That pause was exactly what I needed. The clamp on my wrist was never the real problem. It was simply something to keep my hands busy while I studied everything else. 2 hours is a long time when you spend every second watching. I had already noticed how the guard near the door blinked his side eyes in the same pattern, again and again, like clockwork. I had noticed how the small device at each of their throats glowed the same soft blue as the lock on my cell door. 2 systems, running on the same frequency. That was not clever design. That was laziness, and laziness always leaves a door open somewhere. I pressed my thumb into the seam of the clamp and felt it shift. "You are predators," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. "But you have never had to earn your place at the top. We did, more than once. And we are still here." The clamp released with a soft click, so quiet that only I heard it. The tall one was too busy watching my face to notice my hands. "I am not stronger than you," I said. "I never claimed to be, but strength was never the reason we survived. We survived because giving up was never part of our nature, not even when the odds were far worse than 4 guards and a locked door." I stood up slowly. No current stopped me this time, because the field around the cage ran on the very same frequency as the clamp I had just opened. When one system fell, the other followed with it. The blue light above me flickered once and went dark. The tall one took a step back. It was small, but it told me everything I needed to know. For the first time since they had captured me, he was no longer certain of the outcome. Behind him, one of the smaller guards raised his weapon, but the tall one lifted a hand and stopped him. "Wait," he said. "Let us see what she does next." That was his mistake. Curiosity, when it replaces caution, becomes an opening. And openings are something my species has always been very good at finding. I did not run for the door. I knew that would only invite them to chase me, and being chased on their ship, on their terms, gave them every advantage. Instead, I walked calmly toward the control panel built into the wall beside my cell, the one they had used earlier to lower the current, the one none of them expected me to even understand. "You cannot operate our systems," the tall one said, though his voice wavered slightly. "I do not need to understand your whole ship," I said. "I only need to understand this one panel, and I have been staring at it for 2 hours while you talked, instead of watching what my hands were doing." I pressed 3 symbols in the order I had already worked out in my mind, based on the pattern the guard had used earlier to seal the door. The panel beeped. The door of the room hissed open behind them. For a moment, none of them moved. The tall one looked at the open door, then back at me, his head ridge flickering between colors, as if his own body could not decide how to react. "You are not afraid," he said. "This is unusual for a captured animal." "We are not animals waiting for the end," I answered. "We are the species that faced the end more times than history bothered to count, and pushed past it every single time." I stepped toward the open door, and none of them stopped me. Not because they were kind, not because they respected me. It was because, for the first time since taking me, they were not sure what would happen if they tried. As I passed the tall one, he spoke one more time, quieter now. "If your whole species is like you," he said, "then perhaps we misjudged what we were dealing with." "You did," I said. "Most creatures who meet us for the first time make that same mistake. The ones who survive it usually learn very quickly not to make it twice." I walked down the corridor outside the cell, following the path of pipes and wires that I guessed would lead toward an escape pod, based on the layout of ships I had studied back home during training drills nobody thought I would ever need in real life. Every turn I took, I expected alarms, chasing footsteps, something dramatic. Instead, there was only silence, and the low hum of a ship still trying to understand what had just happened inside that small room. I found the pod exactly where logic said it should be, tucked near an emergency exit hatch that any well-built ship keeps close to its holding cells, just in case something inside those cells needs a fast way out. I climbed in, sealed the door, and set the coordinates for the nearest signal beacon, the one every research station like mine keeps broadcasting quietly, in case someone from home ever needs to find their way back. As the pod launched away from that ship, I looked back through the small window at the dark shape shrinking behind me, and I thought about what the tall one had said at the very start. That my kind talked a big story about being predators, but folded easily once caged. He was wrong, but I understood why he thought that. He had never met anyone from a species that treated captivity as a puzzle rather than an ending. He had never learned that the true mark of an apex creature is not how loud it roars when it is free, but how calm it stays when it is not, because calm minds solve problems, and problems are the only real cage that ever truly holds anyone. By the time the beacon signal locked onto my pod and pulled me toward the safety of a passing patrol ship, I was already thinking about the report I would file when I landed. Not a report about fear, or about how close I came to losing everything. A report about a lesson that species far across the stars still needed to learn. One that mine had learned a long time ago, carved into our bones through every winter, every flood, every creature that once thought we would make an easy meal. We were never the biggest, We were never the fastest, but we were always the ones who refused to stop climbing, and in the end, that refusal was the only thing that ever truly mattered.